the article that you were supposed to read, what it speaks about. It would have been nice if you have read through that particular article. You understand different school of thoughts, different notion as relating to the idea of equality. And what we see as equality today has been a discussion. It has been discussion that it's a discussion that has been on for centuries now, and people keep trying to refine what equality should be, because the notion of equality has not been agreed. It's in the simplest form. It has not been agreed, because what one person sees as the idea of equality is also different from what another person sees as an idea of equality. And like we said, there's been an extensive range of discourse, arguments, and debates when it comes to the discourse on equality. The meaning has shifted over time, from centuries, from decades. It keeps shifting. Historically, the idea of the meaning of equality keeps shifting, and it shifts like one of you raised now. Our cultures are different, and what we see as equal within the space of our culture is different. Over time, it has shifted. Over geographies, it has shifted. Depending on the place in which you are, determines how you see the idea of equality, right? And again, the interests, the understanding of equality also depend on who is defining it. Whose interest is that definition going to serve? So these are some of the things in which we want to look at today. The idea from the cultural angle, interest angle, geographical angle, and the like, right? So there are different responses as relating to the definition of equality. So, so these are the different things we want to look at. And like we said, equality in itself is not a recent concept, right? It's not a recent concept. Like I said, there have been definitions from history. You look at it from a religious angle, from social angle, from legal angle. And today, hopefully, what we're hoping to achieve is to look at equality from an historical angle, look at equality from a social angle, and then we conclude by looking at equality from both legal and moral angle. So these are the three things we want to look at quickly. So when we look at equality from the historical perspective of equality, how equality has been understood historically, it's in the space of modern time, which that's what we're going to discuss. So the first is look at it from the argument of the Confucianisms. Confucianism, they argue that when you talk about equality, we should associate it with the social differences of people. Equality should be about the distribution of rights and privileges on the basis of social differences. And quickly, let me just put it out there that the idea of equality comes from the distribution of rights and privilege. But how do we distribute rights and privilege? That is where equality comes to play, right? It comes from the argument of how do we distribute rights and privileges, right? And there have been different school of thoughts historically as to how do we distribute rights and privileges? How do we distribute resources in a particular environment, right? So basically, that's what equality is all about. Now, the Confucianism, like I said, their argument is that rights and privileges, resources in the society must be distributed on the basis of social differences. They believe that the society is made up of different people, horizontally and vertically, right? We are different when it comes to our economic standing. We are different when it comes to our place within our culture, right? For instance, when you look at it from the space of in the society, we may say, okay, we may want to look at our difference on the basis of age. We may want to look at our difference on the basis of social classes, right? Some people are from the quote and unquote the rich class, while some people are from the poor classes of the society. Some people are privileged, some people are not. Some people are from the ruling class, while some people are the ruled. So these are different classes in the society. So the argument of the Confucianism is to say that equality is all about the distribution of rights and privileges from these social differences in which we have. And they argue that there has to be what? A vertical and horizontal distribution of difference. When we talk about vertical horizontal, it's from the top to the bottom. So they say in that space, we must look at equality from that angle. That okay, when we want to distribute a particular resource, we'll look at distributing it based on who is at the top, who is at the middle, who is below. That's the argument. That's their own arguments of how we allocate privileges and rights, right? So, and then also again, you look at equality also from the space of the horizontal equality. What I just explained of looking at equality from the top, middle, below, on and on like that is what they refer to as what vertical equality. Looking at equality from a straight line, right? Then the horizontal equality is looking at equality as a plane, right? In the sense that we should treat people based on the class they belong, right? Treating people based on the class they belong. So each class should be treated equally, but the treatment of the people within that class should be treated equally, but the classes themselves should be treated not the same, unequally. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me repeat that again. The argument of the Confucianism is that people should be treated according to their classes, right? Horizontal equality implies that the people within a particular class should be treated as the same. For instance, now, when we want to use, let's say, the university system, you guys are second or third year. Third year, I suppose. You guys are third year, right?
No.
Second year. Okay, cool. Now, the argument here is that some people are waiting in the lobby. Quickly, let me just add them in. Okay, so the argument of the Confucianism here is that okay, now using the university system as an example now, you know that we have first year students, second year students, third year students, honors, masters, PhD, right? So the PhD will be the highest class in the university. Then the first year student will be the lowest class in the university, right? On vertical equality, we must treat people based on their levels, right? You must treat first year student as first year student, second as second, third as third, fourth, honors as honors, masters as masters, PhD as PhD. So when you are distributing resources, you distribute those resources based on this level. That is on vertical equality. Now, on horizontal equality, the implication is that in your class, as second year students, we should treat second year students as the same all across the faculties, right? Regardless of the faculty in which you belong. If you are second year students, you should be treated as a second year student, right? If we are distributing, let's say we are distributing money for students in DUT, for instance, the implication is that if we are giving second year students 50 rands, all second year students should have 50 rands, right? That is on horizontal equality. While on vertical equality, it is possible for first year students to have 50 rands, second year students should have 100 rands, third year students should have 300 rands, on and on like that. Or we may say then first year students should have 500 rands, while second year students should have 400 rands, third year students should have 300 rands, honor students should have 200 rands, on and on, depending on any argument you want to come with. The implication here is that we cannot treat each level as the same, right? But that is on vertical. While on horizontal, we should treat each level, people within each level as the same. Does that make sense? That is the Confucian argument relating to equality. Then the Greeks have different school of thought as related to equality. Different people have defined equality in different angle. And for the Greeks, They believe that equality also should be dependent on class. First and foremost, that's the central belief of the Greeks. The argument there is that equality is not universal. Equality is not universal. Equality is dependent on the society in which you find yourself and the people within that society. The implication of that is that equality is just for the people that are referred to as citizens of that particular society. So for the Greeks now, if you are not part of the Greek city, you should not expect to be treated as equal. If you are a slave cannot be treated as equal as the master. The master is the one that is seen as equal in the society, but the slave is seen as below the master, right? So that is clear. Then there are different school of thoughts, like I said, different arguments, different people coming with different understanding when we talk about equality. For Plato talk about equality of sexes. What does he imply by that? He argued that men and women cannot be treated equal. Men and women cannot be treated equal. For him, because of their different physical and psychological and emotional configuration. So for that reason, we should not treat men as equal to men, as equal to women, right? Because they are biologically, in the sense of their physique and psychologically different, right? So when we apportion resources or when we apportion privileges and rights, it should not be the same. You cannot accord the same level of privilege to a man and a woman. So that's the argument of Plato, right? And in the Greek society, consider the fact that the Greek society was more or less a patriarchal society. They believe that men should be treated better than women, right? Men should be treated better than women. So the men at the top are always at the top of the hierarchy. Then the women comes next after that. So basically, that's the argument of Plato, that equality should be based on our sex. Men should be treated better than women, or women. So our allocation of privileges should be based on our sex. But Aristotle also talk about the allocation of privilege. But in his own sense, he talk about numerical and proportional equality. For Aristotle was arguing from the space of democracy. You know, in democracy, we said the majority will always win. It's a majority rule, right? So for Aristotle, he argued that numerical equality implies that we should distribute equality on the ground of the people that are more, right? The people that are more should have more privileges. So, but the downside of that argument of numerical equality, of people that are more should have more privileges, is that those people that are less will always be undermined. For instance, when you talk about democracy is all about majority having rule, a majority rule. So if majority continuously rule, the minority will never rule. So if you take that, for example, let's look at South Africa, for instance, now. If the Zulu nation is the most populous ethnic group in South Africa, based on the argument of numerical equality, the Zulu nation will be the only nation, the only ethnic group that will continuously produce the leaders of this country, of South Africa, right? And then you see that if that happens, what will happen is that we will have marginalized other nations in South Africa, COSA and the likes. We will have marginalized the other nations in South Africa, right? That's one aspect to look at it. Another aspect to look at it is that for Aristotle look at it from the space of economic class, to say that the poor are more than the rich. So if we make if we look at numerical equality and say that the poor should continuously having more privilege, what will happen is that we will marginalize the few rich people. So for that reason, he argued that to balance numerical equality, let's go on proportional equality. And the argument of proportional equality is that there should be representation from each group that makes up a particular society. So looking at that now, proportional equality. Now, if you use the example we just used now, the Zulu nation, the South Africa as an example, it implies that this tenor, we may have a situation whereby the Zulu nation is producing the leadership of the nation. In another period, it should not be the Zulu nation producing the leadership of the people. It should be from another ethnic group, right? Or better still, you can bring in, if we are supposed to have 5 leaders of South Africa, then we might say that, okay, the Zulu nation bring 2, Xhosa bring 1, those people, those ethnic group, let's say, are in Northwest and the likes, they too bring 1, on and on like that. So you see, you bring in people from different spaces to rule. So that way, equality is proportional. Equality is dependent on the group of people that are represented in the society. So that's the argument of Aristotle as relating to the argument of equality, right? And then there's also the Christian notion of equality. It is the Christian notion of equality that believes the first argument around universalism comes to play. And what do we mean by that? It means that looking at equality from a global perspective, from the humanity perspective, to say, okay, everybody should be equal, right? It was an egalitarian approach to equality. Everybody should be equal. All humans are equal before God. That's the argument of the Christian notion of equality, right? The argument is that all humans, everybody is equal. As long as you are a human being, you are equal before God. And under the Christian notion of equality, there is a difference between the earthly inequality, and heavenly equality. What does that imply? Earthly inequality is that the Christian notion of equality acknowledges the fact that there are rich people in the world, and there is also poor people. There are people that are poor in the society. So they will always have rich and poor people in our society. And the implication is that we must treat people based on their social class, on their status, on the level of wealth they have, on the level of power they gather, right? And that's why you see there is still the divine rights of kings. The argument that an individual got his rights from God, right? So we must accord respect to our leaders. And that's why in the Christian notion, they talk about giving unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, right? And to God what belongs to God. The argument is that within the earthly society, there is still a level of inequality that is allowed, right? So we should accord respect to who we should accord respect to. In as much as we agree that everybody is equal before God, but we must know that our equality also has levels, right? Some people, we need to accord respect to them because they have certain characteristics that make us give them those respect. So that's the notion of that aspect of earthly inequality. And the argument of heavenly equality is to say that by the time we get to heaven, all of us will be the same. We'll be walking on the street of gold. We'll just be worshiping God. Everybody in the presence of God will now be the same. But on earth, we are yet to be the same on earth, but in heaven, we will all be the same. So that's the argument of the Christian notion as relating to equality. And then over time, these are like I said, these are historical perspectives that keep developing as we move closer to contemporary reality. So over time, we come to the natural law perception of equality. And under the natural law perception of equality, the argument is that everybody is born equal by natural right. We are all born equal. We have all the same attributes, the same characteristics. Under the natural law perspective, there's an agreement that in as much as we say that some people may possibly have talents more than others, but we must understand that we are all equal, right? The differences we have is not that much. Like you have legs, I have legs. You have one head. You have 2 hands, I have 2 hands. Nobody has 3 hands, right? Nobody has 5 eyes or 3 eyes. We all have 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, 2 ears. Nobody has 3 ears, right? When it comes to the legs, nobody has 2 legs. Nobody has 4 legs. We all have 2 legs, right? So in that argument is that I am the same as Usain Bolt. I'm the same as Usain Bolt. Both has 2 legs. I also have 2 legs. In as much as both have some certain ability to run faster than me, does not imply that we are not the same, right? That's the natural law argument on equality. And then the Marxist argument of equality, it highlights the fact that there's still discrimination, right? That the Marxists believe that equality should all be around the idea of everybody working according to their ability, but getting privileges and getting rights according to their need. In that place, there's what is referred to as fair discrimination. We should work in relation to the ability, in relation to what we can do, right? And we should earn in relation to our needs in the society. So basically, these are different perspectives to equality historically, right? And then there are also different versions when it comes to equality. There's what we refer to as the formal equality, equality of opportunity, equality of outcome, and then the human rights approach to equality. When we talk about the formal equality, it is more of a legalistic understanding of equality and fair treatment. The argument there is to say that the law is the law. Everybody should be treated equally. The law is blind to any special privileges, right? So we ignore diversity. We don't care if you're a man or a woman. We don't care if you are heterosexual or homosexual. We don't care if you are black or white. We treat you the same, right? That is the formal equality, right? We treat you the same regardless. You are old or young, you are treated the same. That is the formal equality. Now, equality of opportunity moves away from this argument of we treating everybody the same, not acknowledging the fact that there's diversity in the society, in the society, to say that we will treat you in relation to your characteristics. It's more of a retributive justice model, whereby you treat people based on where they are coming from, right? Nobody has the same starting point, because under the formal equality, if we give everybody the same level of treatment, right? If you give me the same level of treatment as Usain Bolt, and you expect both of us to run, you know that if both of us are supposed to go on a race, and you put me at the same place as Usain Bolt, you know that Usain Bolt will run faster than me. Under formal equality, that is fine. All of us should stand in the same place and run the same race. But under equality of opportunity, what happens is that when we want to run that kind of race, I will possibly be in front, Usain Bolt will be behind, right? Why? Because we have come to realize that Usain Bolt can run faster than myself, right? So that is equality of opportunity. And looking at that within the aspect of what we have, it is understanding that both of us cannot have the same starting point, right? When you want to give opportunity in the society, now one of you raised the idea that we all cannot be equal, because when you look at it, people from rural community have different level of education as compared to people that are from urban society. The implication of that when it comes to equality of opportunity is to say that when we want to attribute resources to help students, we will give more resources to the rural community as compared to the urban society, right? So we give less to the urban society and give more to the rural society, because we know that in the rural society they need it more, right? So that at the end of the day, they will now be the same. So equality at that space, equality implies inequality, right? Equality implies that you give more to some people and less to the other. So more privileges to some people and less to other people, so that when they are supposed to start that particular thing, everybody have different space for starting, right? So that's the argument as relating to the equality of opportunity. If you look at equality of opportunity, you see that it has some resemblance to the to the argument of the Confucian argument here, which talks about vertical and horizontal equality, right? You treat people based on their class, but you give them more opportunity in relation to that. Somebody saying something?
Yes, I wanted to say something based on what you just said previously, right? So you saying that when we are given an upper hand in allocations of anything, let's say it's education, like you said previously, people from like rural areas are always are obviously going to get more attention when it comes to supports that are provided in terms of education better than people who are staying in like cities. Okay, fine. What I don't understand is the starting point part of your discussion, which I think I where my understanding was that when they give us an upper hand, we are supposed to be equal, supposed to push us to us an equilibrium, as they would say in economics. It's supposed to like push us to be on the same level and have like close to us same starting point. Isn't that the case? That when they give us certain rights better than the people that are advantaged, it's supposed to like push us to a certain level. Like we're supposed to be at this at the same starting point, or at least close.
Okay, you are correct, right? When you look at it from the argument of equality of opportunity, that is correct, right? To say that, okay, those people that are disadvantaged, those people that were historically disadvantaged, let's discuss like South Africa, for instance, now. Those people that have been historically disadvantaged for certain reasons or the other, like I was using an example of rural community as relating to urban communities. The rural community having less education as compared to the urban communities that have better education. So for that reason, you should give more to those people that are historically disadvantaged. But you see, like we said, in a bid to give to those people that are historically disadvantaged, you will have denied that opportunity to those people that were possibly historically advantageous, right? So now, when you give, let's say we have 10 laptops to give out, right? So we give 6 to those people that are from rural area, and we give 4 to those people that are from one area. What have we done? Technically, when you look at it from now, you realize that there's been inequality there. You are giving one set of people more than you give the other set of people. Am I correct?
Yes, to a certain extent.
Yes, I'm coming now. I want us to first agree on that. So if I give you 6 as rural people, and I give the people in the urban people 4, that in itself means that it is unequal, right? But you see this inequality now that I've created by giving you 6, giving the rural people 6, and giving the urban people 4. In the eyes of formal equality, that was wrong. In the eyes of formal, regardless of your history, regardless of whatever, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, I should distribute it 5-5. You should have 5, I should have 5. That is the argument of formal equality. The only way for you to achieve equality, according to formal equality, is for us to distribute it 5-5, right? But by distributing it 5-5, the implication is that because I have advantage, historical advantage, if you give me 5, you give the other person 5, I will be better than you. You get the idea? So now, another school of thought argue that no, we should not do it that way. We should use what they refer to as what the second aspect of equality, which is equality of opportunity. Now, equality of opportunity argue that let us consider the disadvantage that people have, historical disadvantage, physical disadvantage. For instance, now you as an able-bodied person should not be given the same opportunity as a disabled. You get that? And I use Bolt, Usain Bolt as an example. Usain Bolt can run faster than me. So we should not be given the same opportunity in the track, on the track, right? Myself and Usain Bolt. Another example that we just gave now is the rural and the urban society. The rural society should have more opportunity than the urban society, so that now they can balance up. You get that? So in the eyes of those people that are arguing on that make the arguments as relating to equality of opportunity, that is how we should be, right? There should be what they refer to as retributive justice. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense?
It does, sir. It does make sense. Thank you.
So that's the argument of these people. Like I said, there are different school of thoughts. When we talk about school of thought, there are different people giving different arguments as to what equality should be. Are you getting that? So now, like I said, these are different versions of what equality should be. For the formal version, they say equality should be 50-50. For the equality of opportunity people, they say equality should not be 50-50. Equality should be based on what? Historical disadvantage. Are you getting that? Now, for equality of outcome, the argument of equality of outcome is that there should be a moral understanding of equality, in the sense that equality should be situational, right? Different treatment is necessary where there is what? There has been disadvantage. The implication is that if, for instance, we go to the rural community, remember we said that, let's put the background now. Remember we said that you should give 4 to the urban community and you should give 6 to the rural community, right? It is possible that when you go to the rural community, there are still people in the rural education that are still better than others. Are you getting the idea? So for that reason, we should also not distribute it just that, okay, everybody is rural, let us just distribute it everything. It should be that we are distributing to have the same outcome. So it is possible that, let me use a very sensitive, let's use a sensitive example that is available in South Africa now. Somebody talk about the fact about apartheid, right? And we understand what happened in apartheid. The blacks were historically disadvantaged during the apartheid. Now in post-apartheid environment society, we talk about affirmative action, and we say, okay, the people that have been historically disadvantaged, which are the black communities, should be given more opportunity under equality of opportunity. So they should be given more opportunity than the whites, right? Than the white race. So for that reason, so that everybody can balance up. Now, under equality of outcome, that will not be the case. It will be that we should give opportunity to everybody that is disadvantaged, either white or black. You know that it is not all white people that were advantaged. I hope you know that there are white people that are also poor. In fact, there are white people that are poorer than some black people, right? And we also know that it's not all black people that are poor. There are black people that are also rich. Does that make sense? For instance, we are not the same with Jacob Zuma. We may be all blacks, but we are not the same. We are not the same with Cyril Ramaphosa. We may be all black, but these guys are rich people. You get the idea? They are rich people, so we cannot be compared to the same with them. So the implication of equality of outcome is that treat Jacob Zuma, treat Ramaphosa, treat all these rich black people, treat them as white people. You get that? And then treat those poor white people, treat them as you would treat poor black people. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, or should I repeat that again?
It does make sense.
It makes sense, right? So that is equality of outcome. It's different from equality of what? Of opportunity. You know that equality of opportunity, I say treat all black people the same. They have been historically disadvantaged. So let's treat them, let's give them more advantage. So when you have an employment opportunity, bring in more black people than you bring in white people. That's on equality of opportunity. But in equality of outcome, we say, okay, we have black people, yes, but these black people are educated already. So let us leave them. Let's pick people that are not educated. So either you are white or black, you are not educated, let's pick you in. So that's the argument of what? Equality of outcome, right? So that's the argument of equality of outcome. To say, okay, let's treat people in such a way that the outcome should bring about equality, not the process. The outcome should bring about equality, right? And then another aspect of another version of equality is the human rights approach to equality. Under the human rights approach to equality, it talks about the universality. It talks about equality should be a very laden concept. Accepted, you should talk about the acceptability of the human being in itself, right? As long as you are human, you can read. As rights and privileges that should be accorded to you as humans, right? So there's a shift from a focus on the distribution of resources to include our experience, right? Our experience has to come in as humans. Our humanity has to be involved when we discuss distribution of right and privilege. Human dignity must be respected, right? You cannot treat a human being as you would treat a goat or as you treat a dog. You must treat humans as human, regardless of where they are from. Remember that, let me go back to this slide. Remember that when I was discussing the Greek version of equality, I said that the Greek version of equality says that equality only applies to the citizens of that particular society, right? And a slave is not seen as a citizen of the society. A foreigner is not seen as a citizen of the society, right? So that is the argument of the Greeks. Now, under the human rights approach, the dignity of the human person should be respected, right? So regardless of where the person is from, either a foreigner or an indigene, whoever he is, should be treated as human. So basically, that's the argument of the human rights approach, right? So these are different versions to equality. As we said, the formal equality, equality of opportunity, equality of outcome, and the human rights approach. Any question thus far? Any question thus far as relating to equality? Okay. If there are no questions, we'll just continue. We'll just continue. Now, looking at the South African perspective on equality and diversity, we look at the Constitution of South Africa, the 1996 Constitution of South Africa. This is the post-apartheid Constitution of South Africa. And I will just, can somebody read what is there? Can somebody read that for us?
From number 1.